The fees. So the fee can exceed the actual cost to the agency. You can establish a fee to recover the cost of labor associated with locating and copying. The first 2 hours and 100 copies are free, and the rate is at the lowest on staff capable of handling.
First, how many copies?
100.
100, yes.
Advance payment can be required. A couple of things to keep in mind with those provisions. Number one, if your public records request starts out with the words any and all, you should write an equal sign and the word expensive next to it. Because when you start getting into that, the size of the request expands exponentially very fast.
Brian,
Yes?
if you're over 100 copies, let's make it, it turns into 10,000 copies.
Mm-hmm.
You can't charge any labor costs for the 12 days it took to do that?
You can, just not for the first 2 hours and 100 copies are free. So if it takes you 100 hours, you charge for 98.
Explain, well, how does that fit with number 2?
You got 2 and 3 are in contradiction to each other.
Yeah, so, and that's part of the problem with the act, is that, and that, because it's actually in there, and what it is that the actual cost, and what they mean is you can't build the actual labor cost into the per copy cost. And so you can't say each copy will cost, 45 cents because I've got to include $20 of
Copies are
staff
copy
time.
cost, and
Right.
time to do it is time cost.
Right,
Correct.
exactly.
Correct.
Copies are copies, time is time.
Okay.
But that gets to another good point. When you're thinking about copy cost, it has to be reasonable. And when I think about reasonable as an attorney, I feel good standing in front of a judge saying a nickel a copy. I start to get nervous at 10 cents. I feel really uncomfortable at 25 cents. And those are, thinking about how you're going to argue to a judge, this is what it costs in 2014 to make a copy.
So
Yes, sir.
you're just basically saying paper and ink costs, you're not talking about the.
And machine.
And machine, not at 5 or, if you're getting nervous at 10 cents, then you're not really allowing the inclusion of the machine cost. Because it costs something to run that machine.
Electricity.
Yeah.
So.
What I'm going by is if I go down to Kinko's and get copies and they're charging me 3 cents a copy,
Where?
Kinko's.
I don't think so.
So,
Not here.
I want to go to your Kinko's.
fair enough.
What are they now?
It was
10 cents in.
It was 12, I think.
Okay.
Anyway,
Still not a quarter.
yeah. And it shouldn't be that expensive to make copies, especially when you've got your own copy machine and all those sorts of things.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
The other thing is it's at the rate of the lowest staff incapable of handling. And one of the things that I will let you know is staff is not the same across the board. And so, for example, if you have an attorney that has to review the request for redactions and that sort of stuff, understand that there's a big difference in price between an in-house county attorney and what their rate is and private outside attorney. And so not everybody has in-house attorneys. And so when you get into an ND that hires an external attorney, you're looking at $150, $200 an hour. When you make a request of our office, you're looking at like $30 an hour. So there's a huge difference there. And both costs are justifiable. Both of them are defensible. The other thing is when you get into the advanced payment scenario, a lot of times I recommend, giving whoever it is a call and saying, are you sure this is what you need? You need all of these documents. We had a scenario where a guy requested 3 years of minutes of a board that met a lot. And so that was a lot of copies. It was going to cost him some money. I think it came out, it was going to be like $180 or something, and he was upset about that. And I said, look, if you don't want to pay this, do you really need minutes for 3 years? And he didn't trust us. He thought we were trying to hide something from him. I finally talked him down to a month, and he said, well, what I'm really looking for is July of '06. I said, okay. And we got him the copies, and he said, well, how much is that? I said, that's free. You're way under on that one. And you can actually pull them up online. Here they are. And it was one of those, again, it was like that scenario that we just had. Oh, you actually want to help? And so to me, it's one of those conversations that's sometimes worth having. You have to grant or deny the request within 3 working days. You can ask for an extension of 10 days if you have to locate the record or remove non-public or exempt information from the record. You can't use the 10 days as a thinking period of should I grant or should I deny? And again, thinking about it as a customer service question, if you take the 10 days and then just deny the request, your constituents will see red very quickly. The press will be very upset. You want to sort exempt and non-exempt material. And again, that's in case you go in front of a judge. All of the exempt material you're going to put in front of the judge for him to or her to review in camera, which means just the judge looks at it. And then you can inquire to narrow that request again. If the agency fails to respond, it's deemed denied after 10 days. And so if you submit a public records request, you don't hear anything within 10 days, it's considered denied at that point. And so if you want to bring an enforcement action, that's when the time starts running, is from that 10th day since you made the request. That may become important, because if you go to court and there is 0 response from the agency, now all of a sudden there's a bad faith issue, because the statute says you shall respond within 3 days. Well, 3 days have passed, there's no response, there's no 10-day letter, you just didn't do anything. If you deny it, you're notified in writing of the denial or partial denial, so if you have to redact information, you're notified of that. You state the statutory reason, which is the specific exemption that you're relying on to remove that material. And then you state the right to appeal the denial, and that is simply a thing that says the sole remedy under the Idaho Public Records Act is to bring a civil action in the court where the records or some portion of the records are located.
Well, what do you mean, Brian? I kept making these public records requests, and I included an email to the Attorney General every time I did it, and they wouldn't give me the stuff, and now your job is to get me those documents.
With all due respect, Mr. Attorney General, the sole remedy is a civil action in the court, in the county where the records of some part are located.
Well, you just don't want to help me.
Of course. Can't get any work done. The other thing that you have to have within any denial is that an attorney reviewed the denial, or you had the opportunity for an attorney to review it and you chose not to do so. I always call that an idiot provision, because you've got a statute that says have an attorney review it, and then there's a line that you would put in it that says, we didn't need the attorney to review this. Again, when you start thinking about this in terms of bad faith, if you're standing in front of a judge and arguing over an exemption, and the judge says, did your attorney review it? How do you think the judge is going to view the answer of, we didn't bother with the attorney, what's he going to tell us? It's one of those where, as an attorney, there are arguments I feel good about making and arguments I really don't want to have to make. So now we're going to go through a couple of the exemptions very quickly. 9-340A exemptions provided for in state or federal law. A great example of this is the Federal Education Right to Privacy Act, FERPA. That's built into the law. So if it's a federal exemption, it's built into the state law through that provision. On a practice point, if you're relying on a federal law under 9-340A, we recommend including what the federal law is that you're relying on, not just 9-340A federal law. 9-340B, law enforcement and investigatory records. And there's kind of a partner statute to this, 9-335. There's a recent case out of the Idaho Supreme Court called Wade versus Taylor that kind of says that if you're going to use those exemptions, you have to show that those exemptions actually apply for each document within the investigatory record. It's not just a blanket, since it's in the file, it's an investigatory record.
Ron,
Yes?